Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We are indeed, yeah. The snooker season rumbles on. We're in Wuhan now. Well, we're not. But, the special tours and loads of good action again. And non-stop big breaks.
Yeah, huge breaks. The best breaks you can get, Phil. And we'll talk about that shortly. But I'm going to start with this sentence because I loved it so much. This is from Des Kane at TNT Sports. Uh, Four-time world champion John Higgins feels he is lacking quotes unquote motivation after travelling to the site of iconic 1980s soap opera Dallas and staying at the home of fictional baddie J.R. Ewing on South Fork Ranch. That's quite a sentence, isn't it? I mean, I've been entranced by it ever since seeing it yesterday. This obviously came from a Higgins interview. There's a serious element to this that he is losing motivation, but it couldn't be more sort of snooker or up my street indeed. It's the 80s, it's old telly. I mean, Who Shot JR? That's one for the teenagers. But yeah, it made me think, obviously a tangent, but which sort of TV setting, Phil, would, our listeners or maybe me and you, go to and then lose motivation? I thought for me, straight one that came to my head was going to Albuquerque and seeing the sights of Breaking Bad, Walt's house, Los Polos Hermanos, all these places. I think then you might have threw the pod on your own for a few weeks at least. And there'd be no more karaoke from me. I'd just be sitting at home. That would be enough. My usual task would have to be put on the back burner. But yeah, I mean, there's a serious element to it because, as we were texting yesterday, John's just won a couple of big titles. Funny sort of timing, but we know his love affair with Dallas. That's what's done it for him. Going to see where JR is. Extraordinary.
Yeah, I think him and Alan McManus are both big fans of Dallas. I've seen a single second of it myself, but I'm aware of it. But yeah, he seemed to have a great time. He was talking about his wife took him there for his 50th, didn't he? He sounded out a lovely time, but so lovely. His mind's still there and not on the practice table. But yeah, no, it was interesting to say. I don't know what mine would be. I mean, I quite like sort of fantasy stuff like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. So maybe if I went off to one of those settings and got lost in that world, maybe that'd take my mind off things. But yeah, no, it was. He has had a slow start to the season. I think I've heard him speak like this before, and it's just, it's the product of being on tour for over 30 years. You'll go through ups and downs and probably more downs the later you go in terms of how focused you are. But yeah, it was only not long ago he won two massive tournaments, so I'm sure he'll be back. And he was talking about that just after quite a good win. So, it's John Higgins. He's going to keep winning matches, no problem.
Yeah, he would have thought so, wouldn't you? But he may take some time off for at least a few weeks, he says, coming up. We'll see. Well, the main reason for this episode, folks, is to actually catch up with your correspondence. We've had a bit of a backlog in recent weeks. We haven't addressed it for a while. So we're going to end our summer season like that by catching up with those. But let's also, take into account the early action at the Wuhan Open. As you say, big breaks. My goodness. We've had two more Maximus. It's not three, is it? I haven't missed one today. We're only on two after 2.5 days. Slack going from the stars, Phil. Xiao Guodong made one in his 5-0 win over Mink Nutramat. And then Tep Chaiwan made one in his 5-1 win over Pang Jung-soo. None of us really know how Zhao Xingtong didn't make one. He was against Yulian Boyko. He looked for all money like he would. He missed a sort of routine final pink. Stunned surprise of the crowd with that one. But in all seriousness, I have been. I mean, it's excellence in sport. That's the story. But it feels wrong to sort of say, "God, slow down." But I'm finding it kind of overwhelming. There are so many at the moment, and these guys
Mm.
are just. I mean, I'm not going to do that gag anymore because it's. I was thinking it really isn't that funny, and a lot of people listening will think, well, lots of your stuff isn't funny. It doesn't stop you doing that for weeks and years, which is sort of true. But I think that stuff about 147 being easy isn't really working. But I would say as a tangent of that, the Stars are yet again making this very complex and frustrating game seem ridiculously simple to them. 36 pots in a row, 36. And you've got to put the cue ball in the right place or round about the right place every time. And that's it. Another 147, another two at this tournament. It's stunning stuff.
Yeah, and it is. becoming sort of less and less newsworthy. I know we're talking about it now. It's worth talking about on a snooker podcast. But I guess back in the day, it would break through past snooker media into wider sporting media. But we're sort of long past that now. We're well past the 200 mark in professional competition. It's the same in darts and nine darters. I remember not that long ago when someone made that would be headline news. But pretty run of the mill now. Mate, no, run of the mill's too far. It's still exceptional and noteworthy, but it's just not what it was in terms of rarity. And it's not what it was in terms of just sort of the absolute elite players making them. You know, we see it from people in the mid ranks are doing it as often as the people at the top of the game, really. That's again the same from darts. You know, it used to just be Phil Taylor making it most of the time. And now you see it in all sorts of events. But yeah, despite that, it's still an extraordinary achievement. And for some players who just do it, you know, Tep Chai is one who seems to be able to either make them or be very close to making one with immense regularity. You get those players who haven't won those. Tom Ford's another one, but it just seems to be bang on the 147s. So yeah, very, very impressive. And none of us would be surprised if we see another one by the end of this tournament. And I guess we wouldn't be that surprised if we see another one of the 147 bonuses handed out by the end of the season, given how regularly they're making them. Tep Chai made one in Saudi, didn't he? So he only needs one more.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he'd have to get in the Masters, but he'll be in the UK and the world, so wouldn't rule it out.
No, and listening back again to our sort of last recording, and I think it was our last one, when you were saying what I think most people would think, and certainly I was thinking that it's a nice little bit of publicity, but people are unlikely to get it, and the fact it's gone both years is just kind of, and already in this one it's just it's just a testament to the skills of these characters we're watching and why we find them so compelling to watch. Let's be clear. Um, some other early results to highlight. Then lots has been going on. Good win for David Grace, 5-4 over Elliot Slesser, and we are just saying he's followed that up. We are recording, just to clarify here, on a Tuesday early afternoon, pretty much lunchtime actually in the UK. So the afternoon play's getting underway. So in the morning play on this day, we've seen David win again, 5-3. He's out actually, isn't he, against Xiao Guodong? That's right. My apologies. He's out actually. He's beaten Elliot Slesser, but he's out, beaten by Xiao Guodong. Aaron Hill had a brilliant result, beating Kyron Wilson 5-2. Breaks of 60, 55, 124, and 56 from Aaron. And actually, he's followed it up. That's where my confusion's followed it. Come Phil, I'll get easily confused. It's an age thing. You won't be when you get to my age. It'll become obvious to you. He's beaten Lei Pei Fan 5-4, and that's Hill through to the last 16. So, well, Aaron did talk about it, didn't he, with us earlier this summer? What a, not a new attitude. He's always had that upbeat way, but I think a lot of us thinking he's had those few years on tour now, and he's expecting bigger things. And Johnny's proved it here. We always talk about that win over Ronnie, but this is such a big one as well. That beating Kyron and then following it up. Jackson Page beat Ali Carter. I've lost confidence a bit now. You don't really make a mistake. You sort of think another one's on the way. Typical. They're like bloody. They're
very, very rare.
Jackson Page beat Ali Carter 5-3, and a really superb win for Stan Moody 5-3 over Ding Junhui. Now that I know because I've read a lot about that. A 1-3-1 and 4 centuries from Moody. And then today, Phil, to the disappointment of many snooker fans, Moody has defied a certain curse. He's beaten Zhao Yulong 5-1. So it's over. I mean, it lasted a year and a half. I mean, it's pretty good. Plenty to talk about from you, Phil. And yeah, maybe you start with it. The curse is no more.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a lovely little quirk for a while, wasn't it? I don't think anyone took it too seriously. It was just a nice little narrative that we got to chat about a bit. Although it was going on so long, I think some people will have started to get a little bit worried about what this means. How was it going on? 23 matches. It was quite remarkable. But yeah, impressively defied by Sam Moody there. Didn't see the odds for that game. I mean, to beat Ding, he can obviously beat anyone, but to beat a much higher ranked player in Zhou Yulong 5-1, very impressive. And Stan's having a great start to the season. Very encouraging. I mean, it's so hard for these young guys. I think there's been a lot of good results for young players so far this season. Aaron Hill's another one. Um, And then you think, are they going to win a tournament? They still feel miles away from actually winning a tournament. That's how difficult this thing is. Because I think a lot of the young guys have picked up some great results and done really well, but it's so much further to go and win a tournament. But you never know. Could be Stan's week or Aaron's week. Aaron got to the quarterfinals here a couple of years ago, so he must have
Oh,
good
God, yeah.
memories following it up nicely. That win against Lay was it was a come from behind one. I think he won the last three frames to do that. So, yeah, very impressive stuff. I suppose that Hiram was the big hitter to go out early, but we've still got a lot of big names. Despite, I guess we didn't cover this on the previous episode, Ronnie pulling out, but then Neil as well. Neil Robertson. I think he's in Australia. I saw him tweet. I guess after Saudi, he just fancied some time off, and fair enough. Hopefully, that doesn't mean he's going to take half the year off now. But understandably, he didn't want to go to Wuhan immediately after that huge effort and financial win.
And we got a bit of correspondence on that very point, actually, haven't we?
Yes.
About Neil specifically, but it's not really about Neil. It just happens that he's the one that's pulled out now because he's just won big. But it's a general point about prize money and players not playing in events. Cuts coming up. Your views, Phil? You're not one to deny me pleasures usually, are you? I mean,
Never.
what one of the moments I was proud of it at the time, but on reflection, it wasn't that great. When I stood up loud and proud in my local coffee shop and just told a load of youngsters, all in their 20s, that when you get older, basically it's like a list of pleasures, and he just ticked them off one by one. They didn't want to hear that. They weren't happy. But that's essentially what it is. But one of the few remaining ones is the Vidi printer. Let's go to it. Judd Trump against Jack Lisowski. Those two are mates, aren't they? I think so.
Mm.
One,
You hear
one
that sometimes, don't you?
in that one. I still got my sarcasm. That's probably the last thing to go. Sean Murphy won, Gary Wilson won. These are early exchanges here at these matches, as you can hear. Tom Ford won, Rhiannon Evans nil. John Higgins is 2-0 up on one Sojourn, so he's still going all right. The great Higgins, early on, Tep Trio and New against Scott Donaldson, that's one each. Mark Allen has taken the opening frame against Hossein Bafai, 1-0. Cedroy He 1-0 up from Jackson Page, and there appears to be no score in the Stephen Maguire Zhao Xintong match. That's my phone not updating. It's actually 1-1. So in the front page I'm looking at now, and I clicked into it 1-1. So loads going on, loads of big players. I mean, talk about these things being hard to predict. I mean, bloody hell, Nostradamus would have a job, wouldn't he? I mean, there's so many top stars, all playing, not all, but a lot of them playing well in these early stages. They've got in now, haven't they? There's not that sort of total rustiness we saw maybe in one or two of the early events, the Championship League, or even, the ones that came after that. They're sort of got their eye in now, most of them, sort of late August. And yeah, they'll want this prize, and lots of fascinating action to come. And it continues, doesn't it, on TNT Sports and Discovery Plus here in the UK. And you can check WST for your options. Anything much to say about on top of that about Wuhan so far? I mean, Ronnie was a surprise. I'm not going to. I mean, we can't lie about that. We said it on here. I said it to you, expecting him to play, and we did because he tends to play a fair bit in China. He was talking up Xi'an, I noticed the other week about potentially playing there, but yeah, he didn't fancy it, and it's a shame because we always like to see him play, but it seems to be he's in a much better place. Let's hope we see him soon. And, in some of that form we saw in Saudi, which at times was electrifying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think anyone expects him to play every single tournament on the calendar. I think people only get annoyed when he pulls out right at the last second, and sometimes they can't get replacements. But it wasn't quite the case this time. Um, yeah, he pulls out just long enough before where we can look silly by saying we think he's going to play there, and then he doesn't. So that's just nicely timed on that front. But yeah, no, as I said, no one expects him to play everything. As we just want him to play as much as he feels appropriate and he's ready for, and he can turn up and play his best and be concentrated on. So that's absolutely fine. And hopefully that'll be soon. Hopefully that'll be, we've got the English and the British coming up soon. Doesn't well, he hasn't played the British much. He usually plays the English, but we'll see. Obviously, he's moved abroad now. He's in Dubai, so his likelihood to turn up in Brentwood may be affected by that. But we'll see how he feels. The only other thing I want to mention of the early rounds was Wang Jimbo, another one on the long list of young Chinese stars who aren't even on the tour yet. He's a 17-year-old amateur who beat Robbie Williams 5-4 and then gave Maguire a good game, lost 5-3. And even though he's 17, he's already had a couple of wins as an amateur in these as wild cards. He beat Matt Selt in the World Open last year, and he beat Ben Wollaston in the International Championship qualifiers in September 23. So he was extremely young at that point. But yeah, yet another one on the production line of exciting Chinese talents, Wang Jinbao. I'm sure he'll be on tour very soon and picking up results.
Good man. Should we crack on with your views then? It's not going to be a long episode, is it? I would say we're absolutely certain to go on for an hour. You've got work coming up. I've got stuff to do as well. So we're not going to be very long. And also to say, we're kicking off here with some views on Saudi Arabia. But I think we've agreed, haven't we? And you've made a point before we came on air that, we are, wary and, I'm as guilty as much as the next man and woman, if not more, sometimes of repetitive stuff. We're going to do Saudi, but we're not going to do Saudi probably again unless something absolutely massive news line comes up until the Invitational, which I presume, well, it'd be some stage, won't it? Because I know there were two last year, but they were different seasons, weren't they? So
Yeah.
this season,
Yeah, I heard Dave Hendon talking about this. Like it is happening, but I don't know why it's not been announced yet. But yeah, it will be on. I don't know why it's not on the calendar yet, but it's coming up.
good man. Well, things get added late, and that's fine. So this will be the Saudi chat. We addressed it last week, obviously. We had some more in as part of our correspondence. Let's lead off with that. Michael Harrison then says, I don't see how the tournament in Saudi can be classed as a major, quote, major in quotes, with such poor attendance numbers. If the locals don't care, how are we supposed to? I know I'm a dinosaur, but the Triple Crown events have great prestige. Do we really need a fourth major? Not for me.
Here's Tony. Do you think commentators are asked or even told not to mention the complete lack of any crowd in Saudi Arabia? It just seems silly to me when it's not mentioned.
Gary says, it honestly feels like anyone defending the Saudi event is just doing it because of money. It's fair enough in a way, but just say that. Don't try and dress it up in any other way.
And Philip Davies, I respect your views, but I like the Saudi tournament. We've seen two amazing finals now. For me, politics and sport should be kept separate. Where do you want to lead off on those four?
Well, maybe a bit on both. I mean, look, again, bearing in mind your line about repetitive, I said what I think about fourth major last time. I'm happy to, he says pompously as if me recognising it is going to put it in the diktat of snooker. I don't think that quite works, does it? I see it as a fourth major because it's been branded by WSC as a fourth major, but I think more work needs to now go in to raise the event's credibility. Because I'm not particularly happy, and I'm not sure anyone is, whatever side you're on, that this tag of fourth major is chided so much and mocked. That's not good, is it? And it's not being mocked because people are just wanting to just knock everything all the time. I don't think. I know we have a bit of a knocking culture at times. Don't get me wrong. On social media, which gets a bit of a bad press, I think sometimes, but other places as well. But social media can be like that. But I think the fourth major thing is mocked with some fairness, if I'm honest, because I don't think the event quite looks credible enough. That's what I said. That crowds, red herring for me a bit now. Look, I don't think it's something that should be ignored because when there's nobody there at all, that has to be recognised. But I do think the big point for me, and I'm not going to do that thing where I speak for everyone else, for me remains the human rights and the concern over the event on moral grounds. That's always been the main point, and that's never changed. And I say I won't speak to someone else. I think two or three of the big detractors I know, some of the top voices I know in the game, they are also thinking about it from that point of view. That's what I would say. But I think it's human rights. It's the moral issues. That's always been my concern over it. Commentators, look, I doubt they're told what to say. I mean, I doubt it. I mean, I was thinking back to my days in local radio, and I was thinking the sports editor that I had there would have sometimes reminded me, I do remember that, to be careful over certain matters, certain sensitive issues in sport, and even, and I'm now more on the writing side for much of my sort of life. And for example, the main sports desk I work on now, the editor was reminding us recently, quite rightly, to be careful about Liverpool after what happened with Diogo Jota and Andre Silva, be sensitive with the reporting. There's that sort of thing they'll tell you. But I don't think then people say, really, you can't say this and that. I'd be surprised. I mean, look, as for whether I think they should be mentioned, if I'm honest, I think everything relevant should probably be mentioned. That's the way I would stay. And I've scribbled down here Michael Atherton, and the reason I've done that was, for those that don't know, he's a former England cricket captain, now a big voice on that sport. If he was on duty at a test match with a very small crowd, which does happen, or almost no one there at all, you'd think it was mad if he didn't say it. Of course he'd say it. So in a way, what's the sort of difference? And another one I thought was the French Open tennis. Now, they like long lunches, Phil, with a few croissants and a few. That's a French cliche, isn't it? A few croissants and a couple of glasses of wine, and they're not always there at lunchtime. And the commentators say there's no one here at all. It's kind of mad, pure Paris type thing. So I think it's generally referenced in other sports. I don't see why it wouldn't be in this one. I guess that's what I think, and that is already miles too much of my voice. Really, politics and sports separate, unrealistic for me. I've always thought that. In an absolute idealistic world, yes, but even when I was a boy, the last Olympics before my memory, Moscow, was not supported by the Americans. They didn't send a team. And the first Olympics of my memory, LA, didn't have the Soviet Union there. Now, I'm not going to pretend that as a boy I was completely aware of every nuance of every issue, but I think I realised it wasn't to do with sport. I knew it was to do with politics, and the enmity and the Cold War and all that business, between the countries, and those great superpowers in the 80s, were loggerheads for so many different reasons. I realised that they weren't at the Olympics because of politics. So for me, it's so intrinsic and has been all my life and all our lives, I think. But that's the way I'd see it. Yeah, in an ideal world, they wouldn't link, but to me, they just are so linked. And now over to you.
Yeah, yeah, I think I feel the same about that. I completely understand why people want that to be the case. They see sport as a escape or just sort of a fun pastime, hobby, and they don't want it to be sort of infected by the serious and sometimes often quite grim nature of politics. So I get why you want that to happen, but it can't be kept separate. If you go back as far as sport goes, think of the Romans in the Colosseum. That was entirely sort of political um, motivations behind that and how that was organized. And like you say, like throughout the Olympics, even now, and why Russia hasn't got a team, um, why certain Olympics were incredibly significant more than others in 1936, whatever. Go across all sports. Why was the Rumble in the Jungle in the jungle? Because of political decisions. Why wasn't Johan Cruyff at the 1978 World Cup? Why do the countries that play cricket? Because they're in the British Empire. It's all you can't avoid it. So yeah, I can see why people might want to, but can't be done, I'm afraid. Yeah, I don't think the commentators were told, and Dave even mentioned this, that they weren't told to say anything about. They weren't not told to say anything. Sorry, that's an important distinction. Um, but yeah, I guess it's tricky. I mean, there's people in the game that are sort of paid. That it's their job to promote it, like WST. You're not going to hear people from WST um, knocking events or mentioning negatives, and obviously commentators are different from that, but still broadcasters to an extent. I want people to think that the show is good to keep watching. So I think they are and not they haven't been told to say or what to say or not to say, but there is some sort of um expectation that they're making it sound good, aren't they? I think that's fair. So to be sort of slamming the crowds might be a bit silly, although yeah, I agree with you, it shouldn't be completely avoided. Um and then yeah, Gary's one about anyone defending. I suppose, I feel like we've been quite fair on here and nuanced. And there isn't it's not an event without any merit at all, is it? I mean, the players will tell you that. Um, Obviously the money is huge for them and the way they're treated, and there is some basis to hoping to grow the game there and make positive change if possible, through sort of progressive countries going to less progressive countries. So it's not indefensible. But yeah, you could also cover the obvious downsides and of the crowds and the human rights issues you say and other bits and pieces. Um, so yeah, I think it can be defended on some fronts, but yeah, obviously not entirely.
Yeah, and just to say, I'm not even suggesting that people slam the crowds by any means, because as I said before, certainly on Radio Snooker recently, I may have said it on here as well. let's not pretend that qualifiers in Sheffield or some of those
Mm.
home nations events have people banging down the doors. They simply don't. They don't. But of course, we don't see nobody there for day after day, so there is a difference. But you know, people there could say, "Well, there's not many people here," but there are not many people here at a lot of events we see, and it's early days here in the new country. But I think it feels a bit funny to completely ignore it when people can see tuning in. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a committed snooker fan or you're sort of flicking the channels and you're a general sports fan or even someone that's just stumbled upon it. If you see something on telly with not a soul there on the crowd, it looks a bit odd. It just
Yeah.
looks weird, and it just thinks, well, why?
Yeah.
But there we
I think
go.
that's the problem with the fourth major thing as well. I think I agree with you. Like, if you, it can be the fourth major, and if it's going to be that kind of money, then the players are going to treat it like the fourth major, so it becomes like that. That's all right, but it can't be anyone's ideal situation for a event to be badged up as one of the four best and biggest in the tournament, and then you watching it, and there isn't just no one on one table. There's like a pan out to all four or all eight tables, and not a soul there. That's no one's ideal situation, is it? So it's fine to mention that.
Yeah, and I would just finish by sort of a couple of points. It, I guess every sport you say is different, but it strikes me that in some other sports, the people that have embraced events in Saudi, it's a bit different in golf because it's so much bigger with the sort of live tour. They're the ones that sort of are almost treated a little bit like outcasts. You'd argue that's sort of too strong, but they certainly have to justify themselves a lot more. I'm concerned in snooker at times that the ones that are uncomfortable seem to be the ones that have to justify themselves. I don't think that should be the case. I think it should be vice versa, really. But Kati Hartinger joined me on Radio Snooker, and as I mentioned, she really came up with a good word, which is kind of compassion, really. And look, this is a professional commercial sport, as we often hear people saying, quite rightly. It is. I don't think fans should be consulted about decisions, but I also don't like sometimes this attitude, a little bit of rah rah rah. We're going into Saudi Arabia and sort of woe betide anyone that tries to criticise us, because I think there needs to be quite listening. Continue to be done really on probably on all sides, but maybe on the side of those that are embracing it, and not just always belligerence, but maybe a bit more listening. And also what I would say is the discourse around this event hasn't been great over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's been sour at times because it leaves a sour taste with people. Now, I'm not pretending that events in everything in our lives in the UK is perfect. It's not. I live here, you live here, Phil. This is not a perfect country. And in fact, it's possibly further away from being a perfect country than it is at most times in my lifetime. But anyway, that's not rose tinted. We've had lots of issues in the past. But anyway, God knows life is far from perfect in Germany as well. But I don't think talk during Brentwood and Cheltenham and York or Berlin, all the events coming up, will be as sour as this because of those deep concerns over human rights. Amnesty International doesn't regularly call out the UK or Germany for appalling human rights records. And all these things, need to be remembered. I think that is the starting point for the uncomfortable nature of this. And I applaud snooker fans. I think they've got serious concerns over this. I don't think they're being a nuisance. I think they have, really good, values, and many of them. And I think they come out of this with great credit. And would like WST and all authorities to continue listening to their concerns, really, and as best as they can, try and understand them. But I think we've had a lot of Saudi chat, haven't we? And I think it's sort of beneficial to move on from that, really, and maybe we'll do that, shall we? With Brian McGovern coming up, our friend, nearly friend, strong acquaintance. If Brian came to sit with us in the pub, we wouldn't turn him away, would we? We'd
Oh,
say,
no, not at all.
come and have a drink with us. So it's as close to friend as he could possibly be. His views are coming up here on the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. We're addressing your views then, and this is Brian McGovern. He says, "Hi, Nick and Phil. Thank you and Dave Hendon for a brilliant summer special episode. You were all predicting the future of the Crucible. I'm going to predict that the World Championship will stay there until 2032. I'm predicting that based on the BBC broadcast deal. Also, both you and Dave were talking about WST buying a venue. Could they not buy a venue like the Mattioli Arena in Leicester? I know they have the Championship League and the Champion of Champions there, both match and events. And aren't some qualifiers held there, unless I'm wrong? No, you're right, they are. Love your podcast and enjoy Radio Snooker as well, Nick. Keep up the good work. Kind regards, Brian. Yeah, you could be right on that Crucible deal. I said that, I think I went for a couple of years shorter than that, but I said, didn't I, on that summer special, that I wouldn't be surprised now if we get a sort of halfway house. So we're staying in the Crucible. We haven't got a long-term deal. We're going to have a few more years there. We'll see. I could be totally wrong. Could be a rabbit out the hat. Could be Crucible for longer. We'll wait and see. As for the Mattioli, you should answer that because you're a regular at the Mattioli, or relative regular. I'm struggling to see how that would work. I mean, financially, whether there'd ever be enough sort of snooker there to justify such a move. My instincts would be they'd need to go for somewhere a little bit more, maybe prosaic and smaller, for something like that. If they were to have regular stuff there, but it's a nice idea. I mean, that's the thing we often say, isn't it? Snooker is played in other places that belong to other people, and that's an issue we have. We're all guilty of pontificating loads over the Crucible, aren't we? Especially during that tournament. And we easily forget that the next 49 and a half, 50 weeks, it belongs to Sheffield, not us. It belongs to the city of Sheffield. The next production will come up. That will be the senior snooker. But after that, the next production comes into town. And, it's a theatre for the people of Sheffield and the environs and beyond to go and see shows there. So, yeah, Mattioli, I don't know. I mean, I struggle to see whether there'd be enough snooker there to be viable. What's your view?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes these kind of things are suggested in snooker as if you can just walk up and buy the Mattioli Arena. Like, I don't think it's for sale for one. But yeah, they have lots of other things there. They host the basketball, and snooker has become much more common there. We have a lot of qualifiers there, Championship League. I think Champions, as Brian said. But yeah, it hosts a load of other things over the rest of the year. So I don't think it's as easy as just saying we'll have that. Thanks very much. But yeah, it is. We spoke on it here, haven't we? Like, I do think it would be good to have a base, but where that would be, how much that would cost, don't know. I don't think I've not heard any sort of genuine talk of it happening, but it would be good. Um, yeah, I mean, the Mattioli is absolutely fine. I wouldn't go much further than that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's in a sort of relatively industrial part of town, isn't it? I know it's sort of relatively prosaic. I might go to the Champion of Champions actually, and I
Mm.
enjoy Leicester. I like going there for my football trips actually. It's there's something a bit old school about it. I like. I know it has issues, Leicester. Quite a few of them actually, but yeah, I like my little trips there and walk down to the river, down to the football ground, and it's a proper old sports city, that one. But yeah, as you say, whether you could buy the Mattioli Arena or not, to have something as big as that, you'd have to have so much snooker, and then you couldn't have, that would be a detriment to other places we'd like to have snooker in, and then it becomes that thing again. Well, we wanted to well, I say we, I mean, a lot of people wanted to get away from the UK a bit more, I think, take it, more international, and then we sort of, for want of a better word, sort of stuck here. But anyway, no, we appreciate you contacting us, Brian, and I think it's Stephen Hughes next.
It is. Hi, Nick Phil. Great podcast as always. I have an observation again about the game we all love and would be great to hear your take. Since Neil Robertson won in Saudi, I'm hearing an increasing narrative of, well, that's him sorted for the rest of the season. He can pick what he wants now. Obviously, it's factually correct, but as a snooker fan, it really annoys me, and I think that it isn't fair on fans. As I said in my last question, the only tournament I make each year is the Scottish Open, which is increasingly shunned by the top players. Great if you can turn your nose up to 100k. I would much rather have less events, but it was mandatory for everyone to attend, and then let the top players go off and do whatever money spinning exhibition they want. Or perhaps rejig the calendar so that someone cannot win such a big prize in the first couple of tournaments. Be great to get your thoughts. Kind regards, Stephen. Yeah, no, it's an interesting point, and it's. I mean, I completely get why people say it, why players say it. If someone gave me an absolutely enormous amount of money and I didn't have to go to work for a while, I probably wouldn't go to work for a while. But it's almost a bit of a negative way of looking at going to play snooker for a living, which sounds like for most people would be a really nice job. And you can just turn up and, if you can play without the pressure of having to earn loads of money, sounds really good. These guys have families and stuff, so maybe they don't want to jet off to China and spend a week there if they don't have to. But yeah, it would be nice if they saw it more of, oh, well, I don't have to be playing for the prize money. I can just play a more enjoyable um, trip to tournaments. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can't be making things mandatory, as he said. I don't think you can force players to go and play in events, really, can you? Sounds wrong to me, but I certainly get the point. But not less events. I don't think we want less events. That would be to the detriment of lower ranked players and the tour in general. I don't think it would be an aggressive step in for my money.
Yeah, I think it's sort of an outcome of a busy tour and a bit of a victim of success thing, isn't it? Really, and yeah, maybe it isn't ideal that we have such a big money event early, but I think it's an age thing as well, isn't it? Like Neil's in his 40s now. I mean, I don't, think that a lot of the younger players will be skipping events so much. I mean, Neil's obviously had done very well for himself, and you can probably have the luxury of doing that a bit more, like a Ronnie can, and maybe a Judd can. Not that Judd's that old, but you know what I mean. He's been around quite a while now, Judd. I mean, one thing I would add to that is that the big sports people missing events, and sometimes big events, isn't. Oh, I know we shouldn't always link it across sport, but I do quite a bit more. Cycling is not really my thing, but I'm doing a bit more now. And you know, Tadej Pogacar, a huge star in that sport, won the Tour de France. He's missing La Vuelta. It's a big event now. He's like, well, you know, I won't do this one. So it does happen. Golf players skip tournaments. Rory does. Tiger used to. Tennis players skip tournaments. It's not that unusual in single competitive sports, but I also do take your point as well. That sometimes maybe it does seem a little bit like that. I think you put it quite well. It's like, well, this is going a bit too far, but sometimes you get the feeling they're doing an awful lot not to play. They're like, oh God, I just want a reason not to play. It's like, well, why? We can all feel like that a little bit with our jobs. Heaven knows, But yeah, no, you put that quite well. I think. Let's move on. I'm looking at the clock all the time. David Hepburn. I hope I'm not too late with thoughts on my first experience at the World Championship at the Crucible in Sheffield. Not at all, David. The Crucible is for life, not just for spring or Christmas or any Pacific time. The Crucible, he says, I'm sure it's cliche to say, oh my, it's small, but oh my, it's small. But the main thing for me was the actual view was amazing. I thought I'd be peering up for the TV, but I never did. The live view was easily good enough. The atmosphere was kind of what I expected. One word on the no water rule, not allowing water in with kids and the elderly seems way OTT. Very average. Gift shop too, feels like they're missing a trick. I didn't know they were still doing that water thing. That happened to me a couple of times in the media. That's barking mad. I can't bear that. I need water all the time. I know times have changed. So I just don't know. I just can't work out what we were like growing up. We just didn't seem to drink as much water. Now, if I don't have water with me on a short tube journey, I'm like panicking. I mean, it's a bit over the top, I know, but I need it all the time. So no, I don't like that either. Saw some good snooker, frankly. Selby and Allen and Brissell, you make some nice points there about how much you enjoyed the play. Sheffield, I think, is interesting. Maybe not. This is David's view. Not quite what I envisaged. I was brought up in open golf country in Prestwick. So when the Open came to Troon, walkable from the town, the whole place goes golf crazy for 6 or 7 days. All the pubs have it on, players and caddies often floating around. Sheffield was very different. Apart from maybe a 500-metre radius, you would not know it was on. It's like the city doesn't care. The lady at the hotel actually asked if we were here for the snooker. The guy said it was the first time anyone had mentioned it. I guess it's simply the difference between city and small town, and every year versus every 8 years. It's obvious, really. Having said all that, I really like how the square and the Winter Gardens are set up. Really well done. That's my thoughts. A big thumbs up, David. Well, I can speak for Prestwick and True myself. I did the Open there, I think it was 16, when that incredible last round when Mickelson and Stenson were going at it and Stenson won. I'm a bit surprised by that, but I get it. When you go further out, it's not as if everywhere's totally snooker embraced, but when I mention it to people, wherever I am in Sheffield, people tend to know it's on and talk about it. What I would say is, compared to when I first went there decades ago, Sheffield's far more connected to the snooker now, miles more. So I think there's been progress on that score, but everyone has different views and different experiences, Phil. And really, I should talk to you more because you're a Sheffield man.
Yeah, I mean, it is mainly that bit, like you said, around the Crucible, um, which is a substantial bit, 500 meters radius. He said it probably actually not even as much as that, but that's the bit where it feels like a real hub. But I suppose that's just as realistic. It's not going to take over an entire city like David says there. Sheffield's too big. But yeah, I'm just imagining if you walk up to sort of Division Street, which is where some good bars are. It's sort of the other bit of town, which is not a far walk. It's a 10-15 minute walk from the Crucible. And yeah, I suppose now I'm picturing that during the World Championship. There's not much evidence the World Championship is on, but like you said, I think if you just chatted to people in those pubs, they would know about it. Um, but yeah, it is mainly that club around Tudor Square. But I think that's good. And it's I think they just sort of try and concentrate. If you walk up from the train station, there's all those flags and stuff. So there is it's they try and concentrate their efforts into where most people arriving for the snooker would be, rather than sort of other people in the city going about their business. But yeah, it's always interesting to hear people opinions coming from elsewhere though, because obviously I'm here all the time. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, the idea that the city doesn't care, I think, is a bit much. But it's certainly trying to focus where it is most appropriate, I suppose.
Good man. I think
But move on to the next one.
your turn, Neil Hunter. Yes.
Is Neil. I'm struggling to see Ronnie O'Sullivan winning the World Championship again now. Winning that title in his 50s will take a hell of an effort, even for Ronnie. I can see him winning the UK and the Masters again, but I think the Sheffield Marathon will be beyond him. Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly fine opinion, that, isn't he? I mean, he got to the semis a shadow of himself this year, so
Yeah.
no one's ruling it out. I mean, I'm probably leaning towards Neil's point of view there, struggling to see it. I don't think he's saying it's impossible. No one can write off Ronnie on anything, but it's going to get harder, even for those guys. They've sort of defied age for a long time now, but it's not going to get any easier as they get into their 50s. And um, yeah, he has struggled to play his best stuff there. And even recently, he didn't win it that long ago, but since then, it has not always been easy. Don't know. What would I say? Odds against just, but not far off 50-50 still with Ronnie, at least for the next couple of years for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I said on the summer special that I might be leaning a bit more towards no now, but only sort of 60-40. And I've heard other people make this point. I think Michael McMullen made the point on here, actually. He said it elsewhere, I think, as well, that Ronnie will go to Sheffield or a place after Sheffield, who knows, with at least one more massive chance when the stars feel aligned, when he's looking good, feeling the part. It could be more than one, but there'll certainly be one, I think, when it's like, feels like Ronnie's big chance. This one never really did. Having said that, there's a little bit of, and we're all guilty of this, God knows, little bit of sort of like, hindsight thing, because weren't most people saying Ronnie would beat Shao? No, I mean, before it, I felt they were. We were saying things like, well, with Ronnie's experience, not Abigail, of course, with her great cameo when she
Yeah.
joined us live, she very clearly stated she didn't think Ronnie had enough, in that match. But listen, everyone thought it would be close. I mean, no one really thought Shao would win that heavily. But you're right, he still got to the one table, looking an extraordinary pale shadow. Really, now you see what he's like in Saudi. Pale shadow on and off the table. So yeah, he wouldn't rule it out. But yeah, I suppose
I think the previous two were the more instructive in terms of that did look like he was in well set. Um,
yeah,
I remember speaking to people in 2023 who were just like, "Oh, Ronnie, well, Ronnie's going to win it" before it happened, and then he was looking good. Should have beat Luca in the quarters,
oh
tossed
yeah,
that away, and then 2024, when all the big names were falling, and then he lost to Stuart Bingham, which obviously can happen, but that they were the ones that were a bit just like, uh, has he somehow developed a problem here? Which he's won it 7 times, so he hasn't got a problem at the Crucible.
yeah.
But they were slightly confusing losses that I haven't really heard. He hasn't. I've not heard him explain why he thinks that happened against Luca and against Stewart. They're amazing players. Obviously, you can lose to them, but I always consider them both slightly odd losses for him.
Yeah, I don't see that many sessions live in the Crucible now. Probably haven't post COVID actually. So the ones I do see really stand out. And I was in there for the final session of that Luca and Ronnie, and it was kind of weird.
Mm.
I've got to know not. know them that well, but certainly by sight, there's two or three huge Ronnie fans. One guy I'm pretty sure is from Merseyside, from Liverpool. Always go on, Rocket, go on, Rocket, and he was there, and he was bemused, and three or four of his mates and the huge Ronnie fans that watch him everywhere. They're like, he was really poor, wasn't he? And they were
Mm.
just sort of really bemused by it. That really sticks in my mind after that. Yeah, I mean, didn't win a frame that session, and I think the first couple of frames he sort of looks okay, but Luca won the frames. But you thought, that's all right, sort of 10-8 then, and it just sort of got away from him. Yeah, very unusual, but it does happen. Let's maybe move on to John. I really enjoyed the Sam Craigie episode. He seems to be in a good place with his game again. I'll be watching Sam's results with interest this season. You have such great interviews on this podcast. Thank you. I hope you never stop doing this. Thanks, John. Yeah, top guest, great value on here. I think we really enjoyed speaking to him, and a good chance to say, Phil, I thought we've had a marvellous summer of guests on here, and let's say thank you very much to Aaron Hill, Irene Sriharan, Michael McMullen, Sam Craigie, and Liam Pullen. And of course, we thoroughly enjoyed recording our joint summer special with David Hendon. So loads of voices, and we'll of course continue bringing our voices along with our usual tournament coverage into the autumn. But yeah, I mean, Sam ultimately, as many people that followed the game for quite a while said to me, maybe said to you as well, uh, a lot more outgoing than he has been in the past, and seems to be in a great place. That injury was a big, big concern, clearly. But I think we said it so many times. But when you get on here, and I'm obviously the presenter, co-presenter with you, I love chatting to them. People in the have the similar experience, listening, get to know more about them. You follow their results more. Just a lovely sort of spin off of the podcast, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think with the lower ranked players, they don't get on TV much. You can feel like you're following people's career just by looking at live scores a lot of the time. It's hard to find out a lot about these guys, and I, I really enjoyed talking to them for print stuff for Metro. But I think you get more of a flavour of the personality. And yeah, Sam was a great example of that. I think maybe there've been some misconceptions about him before. People just didn't know much about him as a person. So hopefully we help get that across because good guy, great player. And yeah, I mean, really good player. I think I expect good things from him. Now he's back fit. So right, we'll rattle through these tournament plans emails. We've asked people what they were up to this season. Lots to choose from. Ian McEwen here, long time listener here. I'm Northwest based, so hopefully I'll make it to the Tour Championship in Manchester. We'll try the Scottish Open too, one I've never been to. I've done the other three home nation events. I love the shootout. I'm pleased it is back at Blackpool. Would love to get behind the scenes on that one. One of my players I follow unfortunately couldn't pass Q school, so ensure who I will be following this year on the main tour. Keep up the great work and all the best, Ian.
Dan Murray, who of course is a top snooker voice himself on the Snooker Hall podcast, says a few finals for me this season: English Open final, German Masters final, and all sessions of the World Championship final. I'll be heading out to Asia again in the spring too, so I'll try to get to another Grand Prix final. Uh, Another Grand Prix final ticket in Hong Kong when they go on sale. The Belfast final is, and maybe an exciting season ahead.
Oh, he's done well to get all those final World Championship final tickets. Very well done, Dan.
Yeah.
Gavin here. I haven't been to the Crucible for a few years, so it's time I returned. From what you've been saying about Tuna Square, it sounds like it's bigger and better atmosphere outside the Crucible than ever. I'm also hoping to make the Champion of Champions in Leicester. I've always enjoyed the tournament and went to Coventry a few times. I know you always say how good Coventry was there.
Very much so. Yeah, no, I would have quite liked to see it stay there, really. But there we go. James, I'll be at the British Open at Cheltenham in September. I only live about half an hour away, so it's the ideal event for me. I'm thinking about going to World Qualifying too, which I've never done before. Well, you have a few times, Phil, and you talk about how. Um, I mean, that would be unique, wouldn't it? I think
Mm.
pound for pound in terms of the atmosphere and everything. Tell us again.
Yeah, it's a great one, great value, and you can see all sorts for 12 quid for the day. Um, you know, well, it's not. No, you get a lot of people in there. There's a lot of seats to be filled. I think it's really good stuff. Yeah, I mean, if you can get to that, especially if you wanted to go to World Championship, but couldn't get those tickets. The EIS is not the Crucible. No one's pretending it is, but it's a unique experience. You see some amazing stuff. I mean, what happened in World Championship qualifying this year? Two 147s a match from Jackson Page. There's all sorts of mad matches from round one to Judgment Day. So. Yeah, well worth going there. And I think what's interesting about these four here in particular, you know, they're not just. the big ones, are they? I mean, yeah, I mean, Dan's go to the World Championship final, the biggest of them all. But a lot of other ones here, there's lots to look forward to on the calendar dotted around the country, and nice opportunities to go and see snooker. Um, they're all good events. They've all got good players in. Um, find the ones closest to you, or make a little trip to ones you fancy, at Cheltenham or whatever. That's going to be very good. So yeah, it's a nice reminder that the calendar's in a pretty healthy spot.
Yeah, and it's also a nice reminder of ticket prices. Now, again, people will say, you know, oh, it's so expensive to watch snooker now. They're very often talking about the Crucible or the Masters, which has got pretty pricey now. But it's a long season in a lot of places, and there's a lot of places that have tremendous value still. You shop around, you look at those early home nations days, get some smashing value at other events as well. The British, I'm sure, I haven't seen exact prices, but I bet you it's good, nice value for that. So yeah, obviously, as I say, there's plenty going on. Good to hear from you. We're about to go for any other business. Reminder of my Sporting Life column, available to read now on the big beast delivering the goods in Saudi Arabia. And I'm pleased to say there has been lots of debate on the loss of events in mainland Europe following Carty Hartinker joining me on Radio Snooker. Your thoughts on that continue to be most welcome on all my social media feeds and on Reddit. And Bella Italia, you're heading off on your travels, Phil, so we'll be rather late with our Wuhan Open review. So but when we do get back, I'll try and make it mistake-free, eh?
I would guarantee that's going to happen. Yeah, now I'm popping off on holiday, so my fault we're missing a few days, but I'll return refreshed with Tales of Italy. But yeah, looking forward to it. And thanks for listening as always. I think that's it from us. We're just about bang on time.
Very much so, yeah. I would say we are. Keep following the results of the Wuhan Open via snooker.org and WST. It's on live coverage on telly on TNT Sports and Discovery here in the UK. Phil, I went to my first football match of the season, Fulham against Manchester United. And just to say, the referee at the Newcastle-Liverpool game did a brilliant Norman Collier impression when he was talking about, he was announcing the sending off. That's one for the teenagers. Dear old Norman. You probably don't remember
I
him.
saw when I was looking at Twitter when that game was on, and I saw two people tweet about Norman Collier, and I was about to send you the tweets, and then I saw you tweet about Norman Collier, but there was lots of Collier chat.
I think Guy Mowbray,
That was one, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know if he was calling the game or just watching it at home, but I noticed he did. He said one for the kids, didn't he? Um, Thanks for your company, everybody. Not just this episode, but throughout our summer season. Loads more to come as the season really hots up in the autumn. And we'll be back soon to review the Wuhan Open. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Have a great time away, Colonel. I salute you and look forward to your company soon. And cheerio, sir.
Yeah, pleasure as always. And thanks very much for listening, everyone. Enjoy the Wuhan Open. We'll speak to you very soon.
And for now, then, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.